Hey guys, tonight we're not visiting the Greece you see in travel brochures or polished documentaries. We're not here to debate philosophy with Socrates in a pristine, white marbled agora. Instead, we are peeling back the romanticized layers of history to feel the sun-baked, olive oil-slicked reality of daily life. Beneath the legends of democracy and gods on Mount Olympus lies a world of grinding, relentless struggle. You see, while ancient Greece gave us the very foundations of Western thought, it also presented its average citizen with a daily gauntlet that, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments below, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always nice to see where these stories are landing. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The day for you doesn't begin with the gentle chime of an alarm clock or the soft aroma of brewing coffee. It begins with an assault. The first thing you register is the heat, a thick, suffocating blanket that has been settling in your small room all night. The sun has not yet crested the nearby hills, but its power is already turning your home into a slow-cooking oven. You live in a simple house, an oikos, built not of gleaming marble, but of sun-dried mud bricks and rough fieldstones, stacked one on top of the other. The floor beneath you is packed earth, cool for a moment before the day's heat conquers it too. There are no grand windows to welcome a breeze, only a few small, high openings in the wall, covered by worn wooden shutters. These are less for ventilation, and more for keeping out the elements, the neighbor's curious goat, and the spirits of the night. You push yourself up, your back aching slightly from the bed, which is little more than a thin mattress stuffed with straw or coarse wool, laid out on a simple wooden frame, if you're fortunate. Otherwise, it's just the mat on the floor. Your pillow is your own cloak, the one you'll wear all day, rolled up into a bundle. There is no concept of personal space as we know it. The main room of the house serves as a kitchen, a workshop, and a living area, often shared with other family members and, yes, sometimes the family goat, who wanders in from the small central courtyard as if it owns the place. Its placid chewing is a familiar, if slightly unnerving, part of your morning routine. In the summer, the thick earthen walls absorb the relentless Aegean sun all day and then radiate that heat back at you all night, making sleep a fitful, sweaty ordeal. You wake up feeling not rested, but simply parboiled. In the winter, these same walls become your enemy in a different way. The porous brick and stone offer no insulation against the damp, biting chill that can settle over the Greek peninsula. The wind whistles through the gaps in the shutters, and you find yourself huddling in your thin woolen blanket, listening to the rain turn your courtyard into a muddy swamp, a desperate act of conserving every bit of body heat. Frost isn't unheard of, and waking up with a bone-deep chill that makes your teeth chatter is as common as waking up in a pool of sweat in August. But now it is summer, and the most pressing need is not warmth, but water. Your home has no plumbing, no faucet, no well in the backyard. Every single drop of water for drinking, cooking, and the most basic of washing must be fetched by hand. For the women of the household, or the slaves if the family can afford one, this is the first great labor of the day. You pick up the heavy clay jar, the hydria, its 3 handles, 2 for lifting, 1 for pouring, worn smooth by years of use. It's heavy even when empty, a cumbersome, awkward weight that you settle onto your shoulder or, with practiced skill, balance on your head. You step out of the dim interior of your home into the pale, early light. The streets of the polis, or city-state, are not paved with cobblestone, but are narrow, dusty tracks winding between the walls of other houses. The air is already thick with the smells of life, the wood smoke from a neighbor's hearth, the sharp scent of livestock, and the faint, ever-present odor of waste. You join a small, silent procession of other women and servants, all on the same pilgrimage. Your destination is the public fountain house, or cream. This isn't a decorative fountain in a park. It is a vital piece of public infrastructure, often an elegant stone structure with spouts, sometimes shaped like lions' heads, from which fresh spring water flows. Here, the community congregates. It is a place of social exchange, a hub of gossip and news. But for you, it is a place of labor. You wait your turn in line, the hydria pressing into your shoulder, listening to the chatter around you, a mixture of neighborhood news, complaints about husbands, and whispered rumors. When your turn comes, you position your jar under the cool, flowing stream. The sound of it filling is a brief moment of relief, but you are acutely aware that the journey back will be twice as hard. With the jar now full, weighing a staggering 40 pounds or more, the trek home is a slow, careful balancing act. The water sloshes inside the clay, threatening to unbalance you with every step on the uneven ground. Your muscles burn. This trip will be repeated several times a day. It is the rhythm of your domestic life, a constant, physically demanding task that defines the boundaries of your morning. Back in your courtyard, the water is carefully poured into a larger storage vessel, a pithos, to be used sparingly throughout the day. Cleanliness is a relative term. You might use a small basin to splash your face and hands, scrubbing away the grime with a bit of alkaline ash or fuller's earth. A full bath is a luxury, typically reserved for the end of the day at a public bathhouse, and even then, not a daily occurrence for most. The common practice for getting clean, particularly for men after exercise, is far different from our idea of a refreshing shower. It involves rubbing your entire body with olive oil. This wasn't the fancy, extra virgin kind. It was basic, functional oil. Once thoroughly greased up, you then take a curved metal scraper, a strigil, and scrape it all off. The idea was that the oil would bind to the dirt, sweat, and dead skin, which could then be sloughed away. It was less of a spa day and more like spackling and then stripping a wall, a process that left you coated in a fine, residual layer of oil and arguably just as grimy as when you started. With the water fetched and a token effort made at personal hygiene, it's time for the first meal of the day, acrotisma. Calling it breakfast feels like an overstatement. Modern intermittent fasting routines look like lavish feasts by comparison. There is no table set with plates and cutlery. You eat quickly, standing up. The cornerstone of the meal is a type of bread, though it's more of a dense, tough cake made from barley paste. This is maza. It's often stale from the day before, baked on the hearth's hot stones or directly in the ashes of the previous night's fire. It's gritty, chewy, and functional. To make it edible, you break off a piece and dunk it in a cup of watered-down wine. Wine was a staple of the Greek diet, but it was almost always cut with water, sometimes at a ratio of 3 or 4 parts water to 1 part wine. Drinking undiluted wine was considered a barbaric custom, but pragmatically, it also made the questionable water safer to drink, as the alcohol acted as a mild disinfectant. For most people, this is the entire meal: hard barley cake and wine water. If your family has a bit more to its name, you might add a few olives, a salty sliver of goat cheese, or a sun-dried fig for sweetness. Historians still argue whether this first meal of the day was a distinct, scheduled event for everyone, or simply a quick grab of whatever sustenance was on hand before the real work began. There's a distinct lack of ceremony here. In many households, a strict social order dictates who eats when. The men of the family eat first, and only after they have finished do the women and children get their share. It's a small but potent reminder of the hierarchy that governs every aspect of your life. And in this world of scarcity, nothing goes to waste. In a quirky tidbit of domestic life, the Greeks didn't use napkins. Instead, they used pieces of bread to wipe their hands, a practice called apomagdalia. After the meal, these greasy bread napkins weren't thrown away. They were tossed to the floor for the household dogs to clean up, making the family pet a sort of furry, four-legged Roomba. It's a world away from the philosophical heights of Athenian society, a world grounded in the harsh, practical realities of simply getting through the morning. Having consumed your meager, utilitarian breakfast, you prepare to face the world outside the relative dimness of your home. Your wardrobe is a study in minimalist discomfort, and getting dressed is less about fashion and more about draping. You reach for the primary garment worn by men and women alike, the chiton. Forget everything you know about tailored clothes, about seams and sleeves that are sewn shut. The chiton is essentially a large, rectangular piece of fabric, usually linen in the summer and wool in the winter. For you, a person of average means the fabric is coarse, undyed, and has the slightly scratchy texture of something woven by hand from less than premium material. You fold this large rectangle around your body, pulling it under one arm and over the other shoulder, or sometimes over both shoulders, and then comes the tricky part. It's held in place not by stitches, but by a series of pins or brooches called fibulae. These are essentially ancient safety pins, though considerably less safe. A sharp jab while fastening them is a common annoyance. Once pinned at the shoulders, you cinch the whole shapeless sack together with a leather or rope belt at the waist, allowing the fabric to blouse over it. That's it. You are dressed. There is no concept of underwear. This simple, breezy arrangement might sound liberating on a hot day, but it's also comically impractical. A sudden gust of wind in the agora, the bustling marketplace, could easily turn your chiton into a sail, putting your most private philosophical outlooks on full display for your fellow citizens. If you're a man of some standing, or if the weather is cooler, you might drape an even larger, heavier rectangle of wool over the top, the himation. This serves as a cloak, a status symbol, and sometimes a blanket. Learning to drape it artfully was considered a sign of a refined man. A poorly draped himation was a sign of a country bumpkin or someone in emotional distress. It's cumbersome and constantly needs to be readjusted, held in place by the crook of your arm. For a society that gave us geometry, their clothing certainly defied its principles, seeming to exist in a constant state of near collapse. Now for your feet. If you are fortunate, you own a pair of leather sandals, the sandalin. These are simple affairs. A sturdy leather sole held to your foot with a series of straps that lace around the ankle. They offer a thin barrier against the ground, but that's all. If you are not so fortunate, or if you're simply working in the fields or around the house, you are barefoot. You step out onto the narrow lane, and the reality of the ancient street meets the soles of your feet. The ground is a tapestry of textures, the sun-baked, compacted earth, hot enough to make you wince, sharp little pebbles that dig into your heel, and the general refuse of daily life. This includes animal droppings, discarded scraps of food, and whatever slop was tossed out of a doorway that morning. You learn to walk with a careful, deliberate tread. You lift your face to the sky, and the Aegean sun is already gaining its relentless strength. There are no wide-brimmed hats for daily wear. The petasus, a broad-brimmed hat, was typically worn only by travelers or horsemen. For everyone else, your main protection from the sun is wishful thinking. There is, of course, no sunscreen, unless you count that olive oil rub-down from earlier, which would essentially just pan-fry your skin faster. By midday, your shoulders and the back of your neck will be glowing red, a painful precursor to a deep, leathery tan that will mark you as someone who spends their life under the sun's unforgiving gaze. Your fine linen chiton, now damp with sweat, will be stuck to your back in a way that feels both clammy and restrictive. Your feet will be caked in a layer of grime. This is your state of being for the rest of the day. Slightly sunburned, vaguely sticky, and fundamentally dirty. For free male citizens, especially in a city-state like Athens or the militaristic powerhouse of Sparta, your identity is fused with another, much heavier set of attire. Beyond your daily chiton, you have a second uniform, that of the soldier. Military service is not a career path you choose. It is a fundamental, non-negotiable duty of a citizen. It is a lifelong burden and, for some, a source of immense pride. From your teenage years, as an ephebe, you are drilled in the arts of war. You learn to handle a spear, to wield a short sword, and most importantly, how to move as one unbreakable unit in the phalanx formation. You march, you sweat, you spar. This training hardens your body and prepares you for the grim reality that there is always another war on the horizon. In Sparta, this process is far more extreme. There, a boy's life is given over to the state at the tender age of 7. He enters the agoge, a brutal, systematic training regimen designed to strip away his individuality and forge him into a perfect cog in the Spartan war machine. This well-documented historical fact of an upbringing involves systematic starvation to encourage stealing, ritual floggings to build endurance, and a life of constant hardship and discipline. The goal is not just to create a soldier, but to create a man who fears dishonor more than death. And death is always a possibility, because your world is in a near-constant state of conflict. Peace is a temporary, fragile truce. It might be the great, generation-defining Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, or a campaign against the mighty Persian Empire. But more often it is a smaller, more local squabble. A neighboring polis might be disputing access to a trade route, arguing over a patch of farmland, or simply nursing an old grudge. So, when the call comes, you must be ready. One of the harshest realities of this system is that you are expected to provide your own arms and armor. Your government does not issue you a standard issue kit. This means that a man's wealth directly translates to his chances of survival on the battlefield. If you are a wealthy citizen, you can afford the full panoply of the hoplite, the iconic heavy infantryman of Greece. You encase yourself in bronze. A heavy, sculpted breastplate, the cuirass, protects your torso. Greaves, shin guards also of bronze, protect your lower legs. Your head is enveloped in a Corinthian-style helmet, a claustrophobic piece of metal that covers the entire face, leaving only narrow slits for your eyes and mouth. It offers incredible protection, but severely limits your hearing and peripheral vision. The world becomes a narrow, muffled space, filled with the sound of your own breathing. Your primary weapon is a long spear, the doru, and in your left arm you carry the massive, bowl-shaped shield known as the aspes or hoplon. Made of wood and faced with a layer of bronze, it weighs around 20 pounds and is the most crucial piece of the phalanx. But if you are a man from a poorer family, you cannot afford this protection. You show up for duty lightly armed as a silos. Perhaps you have a simple tunic, a javelin or two, and maybe a small wicker shield. Or you might serve as a rower in the Navy, a physically grueling role where you are chained to an or in the belly of a trireme. In the clash of battle, you are more exposed, more vulnerable. It was a cold, unspoken calculation of ancient warfare. The poor were more likely to die first. They were the skirmishers, the cannon fodder, who harassed the enemy before the real clash of the armored hoplites began. And if you survive, if you return home, perhaps with a limb missing, a network of scars, or the invisible wounds of having witnessed unimaginable violence, there is no support system waiting for you. There is no veterans' health care, no disability pension, no therapy. You are expected to melt back into civilian life, to pick up your trade as a farmer or a potter, and carry your burdens in silence. Your reward is the respect of your peers, and if you fall in battle, your family might be able to afford a stone marker, a stele, praising your courage and your sacrifice for the polis. Life as a citizen is a precarious balance between civic pride and the constant, looming threat of a violent, state-sanctioned death, all while dressed in a sheet. It adds a certain perspective to complaining about your taxes. Let's shift our perspective. We've walked in the sandals of a citizen soldier, burdened by duty and dressed for inconvenience. But that entire experience, with all its hardships and civic pride, is built on a simple biological lottery ticket. It's the experience of being born a man. If you were born a woman in ancient Greece, especially in a place like Athens, the walls of that sun-baked house we woke up in are not just a temporary shelter. They are the boundaries of your entire world. Life as a man may have been difficult, but life as a woman was one of profound and suffocating confinement. You do not possess rights in the way we understand them. In the eyes of the law, you are a minor perpetually. You cannot vote, you cannot speak in the assembly, you cannot hold public office, and you cannot own property outright. You are valued less for your mind and more for your dowry and your fertility, ranked in social standing somewhere above a slave, but well below even the poorest male citizen. You exist under the legal authority of a male guardian, your Kyrios. First, this is your father. When you marry, that authority is transferred, along with your dowry, to your husband. If he dies, it passes to your son or another male relative. To venture out into the agora, to visit a neighbor, or even to attend a religious festival, you require his permission and, more often than not, his escort. Your life is anchored to the oikos, the household. And within the house, your domain is a specific, secluded area, the gymnasium, the women's quarters. This is typically located at the back of the house, away from the street and the public-facing courtyard where the men might entertain guests. Your windows, if you have them, are small, high, and latticed, designed not for views but for preventing anyone from seeing in. Through these slats, you might catch fractured glimpses of the world outside, a passing merchant, the sound of children playing, but you are a spectator to life, not a participant in it. Your days are a cycle of domestic labor, a rhythm of endless, essential tasks. You hear the gentle, rhythmic thump-thump of the loom, where you spend countless hours weaving fabric for your family's chitons and himetiants. The wool or flax has to be prepared first, a tedious process of cleaning, carding, and spinning it into thread using a drop spindle. It is a skill every respectable woman is expected to master. Your arms ache from the repetitive motion. Another of your primary tasks is grinding grain. You kneel before a heavy stone slab, a saddle quern, and push a smaller stone back and forth, crushing barley or wheat into coarse flour. It's physically demanding work, and the resulting flour still contains bits of grit from the stone that will wear down your family's teeth over the years. You oversee the household slaves, if you have them, delegating tasks but ultimately being responsible for the smooth operation of the home. You manage the food stores, ensuring the olives, grain, and dried fish last through the leaner months. And of course, you fetch the water. That grueling trip to the fountain house we imagined earlier is one of your few sanctioned excursions into the public sphere. It's a brief escape, a chance to exchange news and feel the sun on your face without a male shadow hovering over you. But it is still a chore, not an outing. Historians still argue about the degree to which women could wield informal power from within these confines. Was she a complete prisoner, Or was she the unchallenged master of the domestic realm, wielding influence over the household budget, the children's upbringing, and even her husband's decisions through private persuasion? The answer likely lies somewhere in between, and varied greatly from one household to another. But officially, your world was silent and enclosed. Your education, if any, did not include philosophy or rhetoric. Those were for men to debate in public. Your training was in weaving, budget management, and how to be a proper wife. Marriage for you is not a romantic union. It is a transaction arranged by your father. You are likely married in your early teens, sometimes as young as 14, to a man who may be twice your age, a virtual stranger. Your primary purpose in this arrangement is stated with stark clarity: to produce legitimate heirs, preferably male, to carry on your husband's lineage and inherit his property. Your value to the family and to society is inextricably linked to your womb. Friendship, let alone love, might grow over time, but it is not the foundation of the institution. So, while your life unfolds in this quiet, repetitive, and inwardly focused world of weaving and water hauling, the men are just outside, participating in one of history's most celebrated political experiments. Beyond your shuttered windows, in a world you can only hear, the radical idea of democratia, or rule by the people, is the central drama of Athenian life. Yet this rule by the people comes with some very significant asterisks. Athens is famously hailed as the birthplace of democracy, a system that has shaped the course of Western civilization. But let's be very clear about who the people were. To vote in the ecclesia, the general assembly that met on a hillside known as the Nix, you had to clear several hurdles. You had to be a man. You had to be over 18. And most restrictively, you had to be a full citizen, which after a law passed by Pericles in 451 BCE, meant you had to prove that both your mother and your father were Athenian citizens. This exclusive definition immediately disqualified the vast majority of people living in Attica. It excluded you as a woman. It excluded all the slaves who underpinned the entire economy. And it excluded the metics, the resident foreigners, merchants, craftsmen, and artisans from other Greek cities or foreign lands, who were often a vital part of the city's life but could never become citizens. When you add it all up, the best estimates suggest that the revolutionary Athenian democracy extended political rights to only about 10 to 20% of the total population. For the other 80 to 90%, it was a spectator sport. For the men in that privileged club, however, participation wasn't just a right, it was an expectation. And the system they developed had some truly bizarre features. Many powerful government positions weren't filled by election, but by lottery. Any eligible citizen could, by sheer luck, be chosen to serve on the boule, the council of 500 that set the agenda for the assembly, or as a magistrate. This was done using a fascinating and quirky piece of technology called a clariterion, a stone slab with rows of slots. Citizens would insert their bronze identification tickets, pinakia, and an apparatus using black and white dice would randomly select entire rows of tickets, appointing those people to office for a year. The core belief was that any citizen was capable of governing, and that a lottery prevented corruption or the dominance of any single faction. Imagine waking up to find that your neighbor, the one who can't seem to keep his olive trees from dying, has been randomly selected to manage the city's finances for the year. That was Athenian democracy in action. And if a citizen became too powerful, too popular, or too much of a potential tyrant, the people had a direct and ruthless tool to deal with him: ostracism. Once a year, the assembly could vote to hold an ostracism. If they agreed, citizens would gather and each write the name of the man they wished to exile on a piece of broken pottery, called an ostracon. There was no trial, no defense, no charges. If any one name received at least 6,000 votes, that individual was banished from Athens for 10 years. He kept his property and his citizenship, but he had to leave immediately. It was a remarkable form of political self-preservation, a kind of democratic failsafe that served as the ancient world's most definitive form of cancel culture. It ensured that the grand political stage was constantly being cleared for new actors, all while the silent, unchanging drama of domestic life continued, unheard, in the homes just beyond the Nix. Now, we need to talk about the very ground beneath your feet, the foundation upon which your house, the agora, and the great temples are built. It is a foundation made not of stone, but of people. Slavery in ancient Greece was not a dark secret or a contentious issue. It was a ubiquitous, fundamental, and entirely unquestioned component of society. It was as normal to your world as electricity is to ours. The gleaming achievements of Greek civilization, the philosophy, the architecture, the democracy for the few that we just discussed, were all made possible by a vast, silent, and powerless workforce. From the most affluent households to even modest families of farmers or craftsmen, owning at least one slave was common and considered a basic necessity. A slave, for you, is not a luxury item. They are an essential piece of household equipment, like a loom or a plow. These enslaved individuals were not of a specific race or ethnicity. Your neighbor's slave might be a Thracian captured in a recent military skirmish, a woman from Anatolia bought at a market, or an Ionian child born into servitude because their parents were slaves. They were prisoners of war, victims of piracy, or simply people from an area conquered by your city-state's army. They were human beings reduced to the legal status of property, who could be bought, sold, beaten, or branded at the whim of their owner. In the daily life of your oikos, they perform every menial and physically demanding task imaginable. It is the slave who might make that pre-dawn journey to the fountain, freeing the woman of the house from the most arduous part of her duties. It is the slave who grinds the grain, cleans the courtyard of animal waste, and tends to the smoky cook fire. It is the slave who accompanies the man of the house to the market, carrying the heavy amphory of olive oil or the baskets of goods. They are the silent hands that prepare the meals, mend the clothing, and empty the chamber pots. But their roles could be far more complex than simple household drudgery. In wealthier homes, slaves might be highly skilled managers, overseeing the family's business affairs, acting as clerks, or even running workshops. The concept of the pedagogue is a stark example of this complexity. A pedagogue was a specific type of male slave entrusted with the care of his master's sons. He would walk the boys to school, sit with them during their lessons, and was responsible for their moral behavior. He was an educator and a disciplinarian, yet he remained another man's property, a guardian who was himself unfree. This created a strange and deeply imbalanced power dynamic at the heart of a young citizen's upbringing. The life of a household slave was one of constant vulnerability, but even within this bleak reality, there were degrees of suffering. Far worse than domestic servitude was the fate of those condemned to labor in the mines. The silver mines at Laurion, not far from Athens, were the source of the wealth that financed the Athenian fleet and funded the construction of the Parthenon. The city's golden age was quite literally built on silver dug from the earth by the hands of slaves. Here, conditions were horrific beyond modern comprehension. Slaves, including children, were sent down into narrow, suffocating tunnels, often only 2 or 3 feet high, to chip away at the rock with hammers and chisels. They worked in near-total darkness, breathing in toxic lead-laced dust, for punishingly long shifts. Rockfalls were common. The air was stagnant and hot. Life expectancy for a mine slave was brutally short. They were seen not as individuals, but as disposable resources, worked to death and then simply replaced. It's a chilling historical fact that even a philosopher as brilliant as Aristotle, a man who pondered the nature of virtue and the good life, defended slavery in his writings. He argued that some people were slaves by nature, possessing bodies fit for labor, but not the rational souls fit for self-governance. It was, in his view, a natural and necessary hierarchy, a convenient justification for an institution that powered his entire civilization. This fragile, unpredictable existence stands in stark contrast to the modern world's medical safety nets. In your world, life is a delicate and easily extinguished flame. A person's life expectancy at birth hovers somewhere between 30 and 35 years. This devastatingly low number is heavily skewed by an appallingly high rate of infant and child mortality. Surviving your first few years was your greatest challenge. If you made it to adulthood, you might well live into your 50s or 60s, but you would be the exception, a gnarled and respected survivor in a world of ghosts. Sickness and injury are a constant presence. A simple cut from a farming tool, if it becomes infected, can lead to a raging fever and death within a week. There are no antibiotics. A broken leg could mean a lifetime of disability, if it doesn't kill you first through complications. Common ailments that we treat with a trip to the pharmacy, a bad flu, pneumonia, a severe gastrointestinal bug from contaminated water, are all potentially fatal. For women, childbirth is one of the most dangerous moments of their lives. It happens at home, attended by other women, and if something goes wrong, there is very little anyone can do. Many women die from hemorrhage, infection, or obstructed labor. To reach old age was a true mark of fortune. Healthcare, as you would know it, is a chaotic blend of practical herbalism, religious superstition, and nascent medical theory. A physician or iatros would diagnose your illness based on the theory of the four humors, the belief that the body is filled with four essential fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness was seen as an imbalance of these humors. His prescription might be practical, like advising rest or a change in diet, or it could be far more extreme, like bloodletting or prescribing emetics to make you vomit, all in an attempt to rebalance your internal state. And if the physician's remedies failed, your last resort was the gods. You might make a pilgrimage to a healing sanctuary, like the great one dedicated to the god Asclepius at Epidaurus. There, you would sleep in a special dormitory, hoping the god would visit you in a dream and reveal a cure. As a thank you, cured pilgrims would often leave behind a quirky votive offering in the shape of the afflicted body part: a small stone carving of an ear to give thanks for curing deafness, a clay model of a leg to celebrate a mended bone. Given this constant, unpoetic proximity to death, your relationship with the gods is less about spiritual comfort and more about careful, contractual management. The gods of Olympus are not loving, benevolent shepherds of humanity. They are depicted as powerful, vain, and spectacularly dysfunctional beings, divine drama queens who demand precise, flawless ritual and unwavering obedience. Forgetting to offer a sacrifice, using the wrong prayer, or showing even a hint of hubris could bring swift and terrible retribution, not just on you, but on your entire family or city. Religion is less about faith and more about appeasing these cosmic landlords to keep them from meddling in your already difficult life. You perform the rites, you say the prayers, you leave the offerings, all in the hope of being ignored. Death, when it inevitably comes, is not a private family affair. It is a critical public ritual. A proper burial is essential. If a body is not correctly tended to, with the proper lamentations, washing, and funeral rites, you believe the soul will be unable to cross the river Styx into the underworld. It will be condemned to wander eternally as a lost, tormented shade. This fear elevates the funeral process to a sacred duty. Life in your world is a marathon of back-breaking labor and precarious existence, run on a foundation of injustice and inequality. Yet from this hardship, this chaos, they somehow built a world that still echoes in our own, not because their life was easy, but because they endured it, leaving behind a legacy carved in both marble and misery. As the sun finally begins to bleed across the horizon, casting long, weary shadows that stretch like tired limbs across the dusty lanes, the oppressive heat of the day finally begins to break. The baked earth and stone walls start to release their stored warmth into the cooling air, a final sigh after the long assault of the sun. The frantic energy of the agora subsides, the workshops grow quiet, and you begin the slow walk back to your own small corner of the world. Your feet ache, coated in a film of dirt. Your shoulders sting with sunburn. A deep, physical exhaustion has settled into your bones. The day's labors are, for the most part, done. You return to your oikos, the familiar smells of wood smoke and livestock welcoming you home. Now is the time for the main meal of the day, the deepnon. Unlike the hasty, stand-up affair of the morning, this meal has more substance and a touch more ceremony. The women of the household or the slaves have been preparing it. A simple table might be brought out, low to the ground. There are still no individual chairs. You will recline on a couch or a mat if you are a man, or sit on a stool if you are a woman or child. The meal is a reflection of the Greek landscape, simple, hearty, and seasonal. Tonight, there might be a thick stew of lentils and chickpeas, seasoned with garlic, onions, and a precious drizzle of olive oil. Olives, of course, are ever present, along with slabs of dense barley bread, which is still the staple filler. If it's been a good week for the fishermen in the family, or if you had something to trade at the market, there might be a small, grilled fish, perhaps a sardine or a bit of mackerel, cooked over the coals until the skin is crisp. For most ordinary people, meat is a rarity, usually reserved for religious festivals when an animal is sacrificed to the gods and the meat is distributed among the community. Your plate is not piled high. Portions are modest, governed by what the land and your purse can provide. And to wash it all down, there is wine, always mixed with water, served in a communal crater, a large, two-handled vase from which individual cups are filled. The hierarchy of the house is present even here. Men recline and are served first. Women and children eat separately, either sitting upright or waiting until the men have finished. The conversation is quiet, focused on the day's events, the price of barley, a neighbor's sick goat, the ever-present threat of another war. It is a moment of communal sustenance, a brief respite from the endless cycle of labor. But for a certain class of man, the evening is just beginning. Once the family meal is over, if you are an affluent citizen, you might be heading out to a symposium. This is perhaps one of the most famous and misunderstood institutions of Greek life. It was not simply a wild party, but a highly ritualized drinking and talking session held in a private home. You make your way to your friend's house, and you are shown not to the main courtyard, but to a dedicated room called the andron, the men's quarters. The room is arranged with 7 to 9 cushioned couches, or clini, set against the walls. On each couch, 2 men, and only 2 men, will recline for the evening. You slip off your sandals at the door, and a slave washes the dust from your feet before you take your place. The evening has a strict structure. It begins with more food, but this is just the prelude. Once the eating is done, the tables are cleared, and the symposium proper begins. The symposiarch, or master of ceremonies, usually the host or an elected guest, decides the all-important ratio of wine to water that will be mixed in the crater. This decision sets the tone for the entire night. Will it be a light, intellectual discussion with heavily diluted wine, or a more raucous evening with a stronger mix? You pour out a libation, a small offering of wine to the gods, and the drinking begins. And here is where the entertainment kicks in. Historians still argue about the exact nature of the entertainment at these events, whether it was consistently the high-minded philosophical dialogue that Plato immortalized in his writings, or more often, just a group of men getting progressively louder. The answer is likely both. There might be a poet who recites his latest verses. Someone might sing a song, accompanying himself on a lyre. Riddles and word games were common. And of course, there was conversation about politics, art, war, love, and the nature of existence. This is the idealized image. Brilliant minds, sharpened by wine, debating the meaning of justice while a slave girl quietly plays a flute, the aulos, in the corner. The original live background music for your podcast. But there was another, much more frequent form of entertainment, a quirky and telling game called katabos. The goal was to take the dregs of wine left in your wide, shallow drinking cup, the kylix, and with a flick of the wrist, fling the sediment across the room to hit a target. The target might be a small bronze disc balanced precariously on a stand, which would clang loudly if you hit it, or you might try to sink a small bowl floating in a larger basin of water. It was a game of skill, and the victor might win a prize, an egg, a pastry, or a kiss from the flute girl. Imagine, if you will, the greatest thinkers of the ancient world, their minds filled with thoughts on democracy and the soul, spending half the night trying to perfect the art of flinging wine boogers at a metal plate. It's a reminder that even in a society that prized the intellect, a bit of lowbrow fun was never off the table. As the night wears on, the orderly discussion might dissolve. The philosophical debates give way to louder boasts, slurred arguments, and drunken singing. It is still a world away from the silent, shuttered rooms of the women back home, who are now perhaps gathered around a single oil lamp, sharing stories in the gymnasium, their world a small, dim circle of light while the men try to solve the universe's problems next door. Eventually, the symposium winds down. You stumble out into the cool night, the streets of the city now dark and quiet, save for the barking of a dog. You navigate by memory and moonlight, finding your way back to your own front door. You enter the small courtyard, the packed earth cold beneath your feet. Your family is asleep. The goat in the corner gives you a disinterested glance. You make your way to your room, the same small, stuffy space where the day began. You unpin your chiton, the coarse fabric falling away, and lie down on your straw-stuffed mat. The aches of the day settle back in. You close your eyes, and in the darkness, the truth of your world comes into focus. It is a world of immense, almost unfathomable contradictions. A world that produced the precision of Euclidean geometry, but dressed its people in shapeless rectangles. A world that invented democracy, but denied it to 90% of its population. A world that debated the nature of the good life in stunning marble halls, financed by the slow, agonizing deaths of men in the silver mines. A civilization that could map the stars, but couldn't figure out a way to bring clean water into a house. You lie there, not as a character in a history book, but as a person breathing the ancient air. The romance of the Golden Age is a fiction. The reality is this tired body, this dusty floor, this uncertain future. The miracle of ancient Greece is not that people like Plato and Aristotle existed in a paradise of intellectual freedom. The miracle is that they existed at all, in this world of relentless, grinding hardship. The splendor of their civilization was not born from ease, but forged in the very heart of this struggle, a testament to the human capacity to find meaning, create beauty, and ask profound questions while standing barefoot in the dust, wondering if there will be enough rain for the barley harvest. And with that thought, a deep and heavy sleep finally claims you, ready to do it all over again when the sun returns to turn your room into an oven. Boudica, the Celtic queen who set an empire ablaze. Settle in now, and let the noise of your world fade away. Let the screen in front of you become a window, not into the present, but into a past so deep it feels like a dream. We're going back to a time of mist and iron, to an island on the very edge of the known world. And on this island, you are waking up. The first thing you notice is the air. It's cool and damp, carrying the familiar, comforting scent of wet earth, wood smoke, and sleeping hounds. A thin, gray light filters through the conical roof of your home, illuminating swirling dust motes that dance in the stillness. This is your home, a great roundhouse, its timber walls forming a sturdy circle against the outside world. The central hearth is a bed of glowing embers, a warm heart in the center of the room, though you know from experience that everything you own will carry a faint, pleasant smokiness. It's the ancient equivalent of having a roommate who's really into barbecue. You are a queen here, but the word queen doesn't quite fit the way a Roman might understand it. You don't sit on a golden throne, draped in purple silk. Instead, you are a leader, a matriarch, woven into the very fabric of your people, the Iceni. You rise, your bare feet meeting the cool, packed earth floor, softened in places by furs and woven mats. You are tall, taller than many of the men you know, and your hair, a great cascade of fiery red, falls down your back. A Roman historian, years from now, will write about you, and he will be almost fixated on your hair, describing it as a tawny mass that falls to your hips. He will also describe your harsh voice and piercing gaze, but he will miss the quiet moments like this one. He will only ever see the storm, not the calm sea before it. You walk to the heavy wooden door, push it open, and step outside. The morning mist of eastern Britain clings to everything, softening the edges of the world into a beautiful, blurry painting. Your settlement is not a city of stone and sharp angles. It is a sprawling collection of these same roundhouses, nestled organically into the rolling landscape, surrounded by a series of deep ditches and tall, earthen banks. It is a place of curves, of circles, of flowing lines that honor the land rather than dominate it. Your people are farmers, artisans, and warriors. They coax life from the heavy soil, their days dictated by the sun and the seasons. And they are masters of metal. You run a hand over the heavy, twisted gold torque around your neck. It is a magnificent piece of craftsmanship, a solid band of intricately woven gold, a symbol of your noble status. This isn't the crude jewelry of a so-called barbarian. The patterns are hypnotic, swirling into complex knots and ending in finely detailed animal heads. The artistry is a language all its own, speaking of a culture rich with stories and symbols that the new arrivals, the Romans, simply do not have the eyes to see. They see gold, but they miss the meaning. Your husband, Prasutagus, is the king. He is older than you, a man whose face is a map of long years spent navigating the treacherous political landscape of his time. He is a practical man, a survivor. He understands power, and he knows that the greatest power on earth has recently washed up on these shores. The Romans. For years now, your life has been a delicate balancing act. Prasutagus is what the Romans call a client king. This is the great, mainstream fact of your existence. It's a formal arrangement, a very Roman solution to ruling a wild new province. In exchange for keeping the peace, collecting tributes, and acknowledging the supremacy of the emperor in that faraway, sun-drenched city, the Iceni are allowed to keep their king, their lands, and a measure of their own traditions. It is, on paper, a reasonable deal, a partnership, but you know in the quiet moments of the night that it is the kind of partnership a wolf offers a sheep. The Romans are everywhere, and nowhere. You see their presence in the new, unnervingly straight roads they cut through your ancient forests, ignoring the gentle, winding paths your ancestors walked. You see their square, orderly forts, stark and alien against the green hills. And you see them in the marketplace, merchants with their foreign wines and fine pottery, and administrators with their wax tablets and their air of weary superiority. They walk through your world wrapped in their togas, a ridiculous garment for this damp, drizzly climate, looking perpetually annoyed that the sun doesn't shine with the same Italian enthusiasm. It's a small, private joke you share with your daughters. Lately, however, The arrangement has begun to feel less like a partnership and more like a slow strangulation. Roman moneylenders have arrived, offering vast sums to British nobles eager to acquire the status symbols of Roman life: the wine, the villas, the finery. One of the most prominent lenders is a man named Seneca, a philosopher back in Rome who writes beautiful essays about virtue while his agents charge crippling interest rates here in Britain. The debts are piling up across the island, and a sense of unease is growing, a low hum of resentment beneath the surface of daily life. Your husband has tried to navigate this with his usual pragmatism. He has dined with the Roman governor. He has paid the tributes on time. He has adopted some Roman customs to show his loyalty. But he is getting older, and his health is failing. The weight of his kingdom, and the shadow of the Roman eagle, presses heavily upon him. He has drafted a will. It is his final, clever plan. In it, he names the Roman emperor as co-heir to his kingdom, alongside you and your 2 daughters. A Roman would see this as a sign of ultimate loyalty, a gesture of friendship. By leaving half his kingdom to the emperor, he hopes to satisfy Roman greed and ensure that the other half, the half that belongs to his family, will be protected by Roman law. It is, he believes, the only way to secure your future. Historians still argue whether Prasutagus truly believed his will would protect his family, or if it was a desperate, final gamble by a man who knew the inevitable was coming. Was it a shrewd political move, or the last hopeful prayer of a man staring into the abyss? You don't know the answer. You only know the quiet grief that fills your roundhouse when one day his breathing slows and then stops. The fire in the hearth seems to dim. The world outside your door, with its Roman roads and Roman laws, suddenly feels much colder and much, much closer. For now, there is only loss. You hold the belief, the fragile hope, that your husband's faith in Rome's honor was not misplaced. That their laws, which they praise as the cornerstone of civilization, will apply to you, a queen, a mother, and now a widow. You stand in the quiet of your home, unaware that you are on the precipice, about to discover the true nature of the Roman heart, and that the fire you feel inside you is not just grief. It is kindling. The quiet of your grief is soon broken, not by the comforting rituals of your people, but by the jarring, confident sound of hobnailed sandals on the path to your home. It's the Romans, and they have not come to offer condolences. They have come to collect. They are led by the provincial procurator, a man named Catus Decianus, whose job is essentially to be the chief financial officer of Britain. And he has the heart of a spreadsheet. He arrives not with a warrior's respect, but with an accountant's cold appraisal, his eyes sweeping over your home, your lands, your people, and seeing only assets to be liquidated. Your husband's will, his last desperate attempt at diplomacy, is treated with contempt. In the Roman mind, a client king doesn't have a kingdom to bequeath. When he dies, his territory and all his possessions simply revert to Rome. Your husband's gesture of leaving half to the emperor isn't seen as a gift. It's seen as a pathetic attempt to keep what was never truly his. It's like a house guest leaving you half of your own furniture in their will. The Romans are amused, and then they are annoyed, and then they get down to business. The procurator's men, a mix of soldiers and scribes with their wax tablets, move through your settlement with an air of absolute ownership. They are inventorying your world. The tribal lands of the Iceni are declared forfeit. The estates of your leading nobles are confiscated. The loans called in by Seneca and others are now due, immediately, and when your chieftains cannot pay these impossible sums, they are stripped of their ancestral property. The partnership is over. Your people are now officially classified as conquered subjects, with all the protections of a doormat. You protest. You stand before these men, your status as queen a fragile shield. You speak of your husband's loyalty, of the treaties, of the honor that is supposed to be the bedrock of Roman law. They look at you as if you are a curious specimen of local fauna. A woman? A barbarian queen? Trying to lecture them on law. The arrogance is a physical force, pressing in on you. It is decided that an example must be made. An example of you. They seize you. The heavy gold torque around your neck, once a symbol of your power and prestige, feels suddenly like a collar. They drag you from your home, out into the central clearing where your people are gathered, watching in stunned silence. There is a post, and there are ropes. As they tie your wrists, the rough hemp bites into your skin. They tear the tunic from your back, and the cold, damp air meets your bare skin. It is the ultimate humiliation, a punishment reserved for runaway slaves, not for royalty. You do not scream. You fix your gaze on the horizon, over the heads of your captors and your silent people. You feel the sting and hear the whistle of the lash, but your mind retreats to a cold, quiet place deep inside. You are dimly aware of the soldiers laughing, of the procurator watching with detached satisfaction. This, he believes, is how you civilize savages. You break them. You show them their place in the new order of things. But the true horror is yet to come. They are not finished. They bring your daughters forward. Two young women, barely on the cusp of adulthood, their eyes wide with a terror that cuts through your own cold resolve. What happens next is a violation so profound it shatters the world. Roman law, Roman order, Roman civilization, it all reveals itself as a lie, a thin veneer over a core of brutal, violent power. They are assaulted, not in the heat of battle, but as a calculated act of state policy. It is a message, sent to you and to all the tribes of Britain. You are not just conquered. You are property. Your bodies, your children, your very bloodline belong to Rome. When they are finally done, they leave you. They leave you in the wreckage of your life, in the ruins of your family's honor, convinced that they have broken you, that the Iceni are finished. They are wrong. In the hours and days that follow, something changes inside you. The grief for your husband, the shock, the shame, it doesn't vanish. It crystallizes. It transforms from a soft, aching sorrow into something diamond-hard and razor-sharp. The fire you felt as kindling has now been doused in gasoline. The woman who sought compromise, the queen who advised her husband to trust in Roman law, is gone, burned away. In her place is a mother whose children have been savaged and a queen whose people have been enslaved. You look at your reflection in a polished bronze mirror, at the welts on your back and the new, terrifying light in your own eyes, and you see the woman the Roman historian will later describe. The piercing gaze, the harsh voice. He saw a monster. He should have seen a mother. You begin to speak, first to your own chieftains, their faces a mixture of fear and rage. Your voice does not tremble. It is low, steady, and filled with a resonant fury that silences all doubt. You send out riders, your most trusted warriors, who travel the secret paths of the island under the dark of the moon. They carry your message not just to the Iceni villages, but beyond, to the neighboring lands of the Trinovants. The Trinovants have their own deep well of hatred for Rome. This becomes the crucial bond of your rebellion, the fact that cements a wider alliance. Their capital, their most sacred place, had been seized by the Romans and turned into a colonia, a settlement for retired legionaries, which they named Camulodunum. These veterans, arrogant and cruel, had treated the local Trinovants like their personal servants, pushing them from their homes and farms. And to add the ultimate insult, the Romans had forced them to help build a massive, hideous temple dedicated to the Emperor Claudius, the man who had conquered them. They were being forced to build a monument to their own subjugation, on their own stolen land. When your messengers arrive with news of what was done to you and your daughters, the Trinovants' simmering resentment boils over. Secretly, the leaders of the tribes gather. In a hidden grove, deep in the woods, away from the Roman roads and the prying eyes of their forts. They are a grim-faced assembly of warriors, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single bonfire. Historians still argue about the precise details of this meeting, whether it was a single grand council or a series of smaller, clandestine agreements. But they all agree on the outcome. You stand before them. You do not have to raise your voice. You simply tell them what happened. You lay bare the Roman hypocrisy, their greed, their contempt for all that is not Roman. And then, as was the custom, you seek an omen. This is a quirky little detail, a moment of deep Celtic belief that a Roman would find laughable. You open a fold in your tunic and release a hare. The small creature, a symbol of stealth and speed, darts out into the clearing. The assembled chieftains watch its every move in dead silence. It doesn't cower or freeze. It runs, strong and true, in a direction they all interpret as favorable. A quiet cheer, a low rumble of approval, moves through the crowd. The gods, it seems, are with you. The hare has blessed your war. In that moment, you are chosen, not by birthright or by marriage, but by the sheer, undeniable force of your will and your pain. You are no longer Boudica of the Iceni. You are the chosen leader of a great and terrible rebellion. The warriors pledge their swords to you. The grievances of a dozen tribes coalesce into a single, burning purpose. Revenge. Your army begins to gather. It is not a legion, drilled in uniform. It is a flood of people. Farmers with their pitchforks, woodsmen with their axes, chieftains with their long swords and brightly painted shields, their wives and children following behind in a great train of wagons, ready to witness the great victory. It is an entire people rising up. A slow, quiet, unstoppable tide of fury, rolling across the land. And you are at its head, your red hair a banner of defiance as you begin your march. Your target is the symbol of Roman arrogance itself, the city of Camulodunum. Your army is a living thing now, a vast, sprawling creature of iron and fury. It does not march with the metronomic precision of a Roman legion. It flows across the landscape like a river breaking its banks, a chaotic and overwhelming force. Men with painted faces and long, drooping mustaches sharpen their swords. Women urge the ox-drawn carts forward, their children watching with wide, serious eyes. The air is thick with the sounds of thousands of voices, the creak of wagon wheels, and the low, hungry growl of a people who have had enough. It is the sound of a nation waking up. And at its head, in a war chariot that jolts over the uneven ground you ride. You are the focal point of all this rage, all this hope. Your first destination is Camulodunum. The very name leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. To the Romans, it is a proud colonia, a retirement paradise for the men of their legions. To your allies, the Trinovants, it is a graveyard of their freedom, built on their stolen land. As your army crests the final hill, you see it laid out below. It is not built like your own settlements, with their comforting curves and earthen defenses. It is a place of straight lines and right angles, a grid of Roman order stamped onto the British soil. And dominating it all, stark and white against the gray sky, is the temple of the deified Claudius, a monument built with Trinovant sweat and tears to honor their conqueror. It is the ultimate symbol of Roman arrogance, and it is the first thing that will burn. The city is unprepared. The veterans who live there are soldiers no more. They are old men, soft from years of peace, more concerned with the quality of their imported wine than the strength of their city walls. Panic is a fire that catches faster than any torch. They see your army, this impossible, terrifying horde, and they scramble for safety. A desperate few, the last of their warrior instincts kicking in, barricade themselves inside the great stone temple. They believe its solid walls and its divine dedication will protect them. Your warriors pour into the streets. There is no plan of attack, no structured siege. There is only a wave of destruction. They tear down the neat Roman porticos, smash the statues of unfamiliar gods, and set fire to the villas with their fancy mosaic floors. The carefully ordered world of Camulodunum dissolves into chaos and smoke. For 2 days, the city burns. And for 2 days, the veterans inside the temple hold out, listening to the destruction of their world. Finally, your warriors breach the doors. There is no mercy here. You are not fighting a war of conquest. You are performing an exorcism, purging the land of a poison. News of the city's fall travels fast along those unervingly straight Roman roads. The nearest legion, the 9th Hispana, is scrambled into action. Its commander, Quintus Petilius Cerealis, is a man of action and perhaps a little too much confidence. He gathers what infantry he can, about 2,000 men, and marches to crush your little rebellion and restore order. He expects to face a disorganized rabble. He is, to put it mildly, about to have a very bad day. You do not wait for him in the open field. You are a creature of the forest, of the hidden paths and the morning mist. You learn of his approach, and you lay a trap. As the neat column of legionaries marches along the road, flanked by dense woods, the world erupts. Warriors pour from the trees on all sides. The Romans, trained for formation fighting on clear ground, are caught completely by surprise. Their discipline shatters. The fight is short, brutal, and utterly one-sided. The entire infantry force is annihilated. Cerealis himself, along with his cavalry, barely escapes with his life, fleeing back to the safety of his fortress with the terrifying news. A Roman legion has been effectively wiped out by a woman and a horde of barbarians. The shockwave of this defeat ripples through the Roman command. Your victory swells your numbers. Fear of Roman reprisal is replaced by the intoxicating taste of success. Your army, now rumored to be tens of thousands strong, turns south. Your next target is a newer settlement, but one that is quickly becoming the most important in the province, Londinium. This isn't a city of retired soldiers. It's a bustling hub of commerce and administration. A place of merchants, traders, tax collectors, and bureaucrats. It's the wallet of Roman Britain, built on the banks of the wide river Thamesis. It's a place where men like Catus Decianus, the procurator who ordered your flogging, felt most at home. A city built on profit, not prestige. And it has no walls. Its only defense is the Roman belief that no one would dare attack it. Meanwhile, the Roman governor, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, is finally entering the story. He had been away on the western edge of the world in Wales, conducting a campaign to wipe out the Druids on the island of Mona, or Anglesey. The Druids were the spiritual heart of Celtic resistance, and Suetonius, a hard and methodical general, was cutting that heart out. It's while he's there, his hands metaphorically full with sacred groves and determined priests, that a frantic messenger arrives with news of your uprising. Suetonius is everything Petilius Cerealis was not, cautious, pragmatic, and ruthless. He abandons his campaign and rides with a small cavalry detachment, hell-bent across the province, to assess the situation. He reaches Londinium before your army does, and he makes a decision that must have been agonizing. He looks at the sprawling, undefended city, full of panicked civilians begging him for protection. He looks at his own small force, and he makes the cold calculation of a true Roman general. He cannot save the city, but he can save his army, and with it, the province. He announces that he is abandoning Londinium. Anyone who can keep up with his army may join him. Those who cannot, the old, the young, the slow, are left to their fate. When your army arrives, you find a city half empty and paralyzed by fear. You unleash your fury upon it. The warehouses full of grain and wine go up in smoke. The homes of the wealthy merchants are looted and burned. The administrative buildings, with their endless records of taxes and debts, are reduced to ashes. One can almost imagine a certain grim satisfaction in watching a tax collector's office burn. It's a feeling that might just be timeless. Archaeologists digging under modern London have found a thick, uniform layer of burnt red clay and ash dating to this exact period. They call it the Boudiccan destruction layer, a scar of your passing preserved in the earth. From the smoking ruins of Londinium, you march on. Your final target is Verulamium, near modern-day St. Albans. This place is different again. It was a municipium, a major tribal capital of the Cativalani, who had chosen to embrace Rome. Its people were Britons who had become Roman citizens. They wore togas, spoke Latin, and likely looked down on uncivilized tribes like the Iceni. To you, they are collaborators, traitors. The destruction of Verulamium is a message to them and to any other Britons wavering in their loyalties. The message is simple: there is no middle ground. You are with Rome, or you are with Britain. Historians still argue about the total number of people who perished in the sack of these three cities. The Roman historian Tacitus gives a number around 70,000. Whether this is an accurate count or an exaggeration to emphasize the barbarity of your revolt is a matter of debate. What is not in dispute is the result. In a few short weeks, you have brought the Roman province of Britain to its knees. The three most important centers of Roman power and commerce are smoking ruins. A legion lies shattered. The governor himself is in retreat. You stand at the absolute zenith of your power, a queen of ashes and blood, having unleashed a storm that has set an empire ablaze. Suetonius and his remaining legions are out there, somewhere. You know this is not over. But for now, as you stand amidst the ruins, the island feels like it is yours once more. The smoke from Verulamium is still a smudge on the horizon behind you as you gather your forces. The victories have been swift, intoxicating, but you know this is not the end. Suetonius Paulinus is still out there. He has abandoned cities, yes, but he has preserved his army. And a Roman army, even a small one, is a dangerous, cornered beast. He is somewhere on the great Roman road that slices through the heart of the island, the road they call Waddling Street. He is choosing his ground. Your own army is now immense, a vast, sprawling tide of humanity. Some sources say it numbers over 100,000, perhaps even more. But it is not an army in the Roman sense. It is a migration. Behind your warriors trails a massive encampment of families with their wagons, livestock, and all their worldly possessions. They have come not just to fight, but to witness the final, glorious expulsion of the Romans from their land. They are so certain of victory that they arrange their wagons in a great crescent shape at the rear of your chosen battlefield, creating a grandstand from which their wives and children can watch the final triumph. This, in hindsight, was perhaps not the best idea. Suetonius, the methodical general, finds the perfect spot for his last stand. He chooses a place where the road runs through a narrow defile, with a dense forest protecting his rear and steep, sloping hills on either side. It's a bottleneck, a place where your overwhelming numbers will mean nothing. Your vast host will have to funnel itself into a narrow killing zone to reach his men. It's a brilliant, if terrifyingly predictable, piece of Roman tactical thinking. They find a good defensive position, and they wait. They're always so good at waiting. As your forces arrive, you see them. A thin line of red shields and polished helmets, waiting in perfect, silent order. Suetonius has perhaps 10,000 men in total, the 14th Gemena Legion, a detachment of the 20th, and some auxiliaries. They are vastly outnumbered, but they are professional soldiers, disciplined, rested, and standing on ground of their own choosing. You, however, have momentum and righteous fury. You ride before your warriors in your chariot, your 2 daughters beside you. This is the moment a Roman historian chooses to record your speech, and it has become the most famous mainstream fact of your legend. He writes that you told your people you were not fighting for lost wealth or kingdom, but as an ordinary woman, avenging her stolen freedom, her battered body, and the shattered innocence of her daughters. You told them it was better to die in battle, free, than to live as slaves. You declared that this was a woman's resolve. The men could live and be slaves if they wished. It's a wonderfully dramatic speech. Did you actually say it? Almost certainly not in those exact words. It's a Roman writing for a Roman audience, putting a noble, albeit barbarian, sentiment into your mouth. But the core of it, the raw emotion, that feels true. The battle begins. The air fills with the sound of Karnak's horns, long, bronze trumpets shaped like the heads of boars, which let out a deep, terrifying braying sound. With a great roar that shakes the very trees, your warriors surge forward. They charge up the slope, a chaotic, furious wave of humanity, straight into the narrow defile. And they die. The Romans wait. Silent. Disciplined. They wait until your charging warriors are almost upon them. Then, on a single command, the first volley of javelins, the pila, flies. Each is a heavy, 7-foot spear designed to punch through a shield and wound the man behind it. The volley is devastating. The front ranks of your army falter, stumbling over their own dead and dying, their shields made useless by the heavy, embedded spears. Before they can recover, a second volley flies. And then the Romans draw their short, stabbing swords, the gladius, and advance. Not with a wild charge, but with a steady, relentless push. They move forward in a solid wall of shields, stabbing from behind their cover, a machine designed for maximum killing with minimum exposure. Your army, packed into the narrow space, cannot maneuver. Their numbers become their own enemy. Men at the back, eager for the fight, push forward, crushing those at the front against the unyielding Roman shield wall. The long swords of your warriors, so effective in a swirling melee, are too cumbersome to use in this crush. The short, vicious gladius, however, is perfectly suited for this close-quarters butchery. It's like trying to fight a swarm of wasps in a phone booth. The result is a slaughter. Your warriors fight with incredible bravery, but bravery is not a defense against discipline and terrain. The Roman line holds, pushes forward, and the ground becomes slick with blood. The charge breaks, then becomes a rout. Your army turns to flee, but their escape is blocked. Blocked by their own wagons. The grandstand of victory has become a wall of death. The Roman cavalry, which had been held on the flanks, now sweeps in, cutting down the fleeing warriors and, with cold-blooded efficiency, the families trapped among the carts. The Romans, Tacitus tells us, spared no one. Not the women, not the children, not even the pack animals. It was total annihilation. In the midst of this chaos, what becomes of you? Historians still argue about your final moments. Tacitus, our main source, says simply that you ended your own life by poison, choosing death over capture. Another Roman historian, Cassius Dio, writing more than a century later, tells a slightly different story, that you fell ill and died, and were given a rich burial. Did you carry a vial of poison, a final act of defiance? Or did you escape the battlefield, only to succumb to sickness and despair? We will never know for sure. Your end, like so much of your life, is shrouded in the mists of time. Your rebellion was over. The province of Britain was saved for Rome, but the island was forever changed. The Romans, shaken to their core, realized their heavy-handed policies had nearly cost them everything. Catus Decianus, the procurator whose greed started it all, had already fled in terror back to Gaul. He was replaced, and Roman administration in Britain became, if not gentle, at least a little more careful. They had learned that even the most distant, rain-soaked island could harbor a fire that could threaten to set an empire ablaze. And you passed from history into legend. For centuries, you were largely forgotten, a footnote in a Roman text. But you were rediscovered, and you became a symbol. To the Elizabethans, you were an ancient British queen standing up to a foreign, European power. To the Victorians, you were a heroic, almost imperial figure, another powerful queen to adorn their own empire. They even erected a grand statue of you, chariot and all, right next to the Houses of Parliament, where it stands to this day. A quirky, fringe tidbit of your legacy is that this statue, a symbol of British defiance, was funded in part by a legacy from Prince Albert, a German. You have become an icon of resistance, a symbol for anyone who has ever stood up to an overwhelming force. But tonight, as our story ends, perhaps we can remember you as you were in the beginning. Not a statue of bronze, but a woman of flesh and blood. A queen in a roundhouse, waking to the smell of wood smoke. A mother. A widow. A person pushed so far that the only path left was to fight. And as you close your eyes now, let the clamor of that final, terrible battle fade away, and drift back to the quiet of that misty morning, in a kingdom that was, for a fleeting moment, all your own. The art of ancient healing, a global quest for balance. Let go of the day. Allow the muscles in your shoulders to soften, and the gentle weight of your eyelids to feel like a welcome comfort. We are about to begin a quiet journey, not across continents in a rush, but through the slow, deep currents of time. We are going in search of something fundamental, something we all seek, balance, and a way to heal. Our quest begins in a land baked golden by the sun, a kingdom born from a single, life-giving river. Let the sounds of your world fade, and listen instead for the whisper of papyrus reeds along the banks of the Nile. You are here in ancient Egypt. The air is warm and dry, filled with the scent of hot sand, blooming lotus flowers, and the rich, dark earth that the river bestows upon the desert each year. The sun is a powerful, ever-present deity, and you understand why. It governs everything. Life feels both precarious and eternal here, held in a delicate balance between the fertile black land of the river valley and the vast, sterile red land of the desert that stretches to the horizon. You have come seeking a healer. You feel an imbalance, a sense of disquiet in your body, and in this world, physical and spiritual well-being are one and the same. Sickness is not just a random misfortune. It is an invasion, perhaps a punishment from a displeased god, the work of a malicious ghost, or a demon that has slipped into your body like a thief in the night. So to be healed, you need more than just a simple remedy. You need a physician, a priest, and a magician all rolled into one. You need a SWNW. You find him in a chamber near one of the great temples. The room is cool, a welcome escape from the relentless sun. The walls are covered in painted hieroglyphs, intricate stories of gods and pharaohs. The air smells of dried herbs, myrrh, and something faintly sweet like honey. The SWNW is a respected figure. This is not some fringe practitioner. Medicine in Egypt is a highly organized, state-sanctioned profession. This is one of the great mainstream facts of their civilization, documented in incredible detail on surviving medical texts like the Ebers Papyrus and the Edwin Smith Papyrus. These aren't just collections of folk remedies. They are structured medical encyclopedias. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, in particular, is astonishingly rational. It presents a series of 48 case studies of physical trauma, arranged systematically from the head down to the spine. Each case includes a title, an examination, a diagnosis, and a treatment. It feels remarkably modern, with its calm, clinical observations of skull fractures and spinal injuries. It even includes a prognosis, soberly declaring for some severe cases that it is an ailment not to be treated. This is the world's first known record of a doctor saying, "Look, I'm a physician, not a miracle worker." What's more, Egyptian doctors were specialists. There were ophthalmologists, dentists, and even a role delightfully translated as shepherd of the anus, a court proctologist. Imagine, no 6-month waiting list to see a specialist. Your pharaoh had a problem, he had a guy. This level of organization shows a deep, long-standing tradition of medical investigation. The physician approaches you. He is calm, his gaze observant. He will ask you questions, listen to your heart by placing a hand on your chest, and perhaps examine your urine. But his diagnosis will not be purely physical. He understands that your ailment has a spiritual component, and so the treatment will be twofold. He will prepare a physical remedy, a prescription ground from herbs, minerals, or animal products. And with it, he will provide an incantation, a specific magical spell to be recited as you take the medicine. This is the heart of Egyptian healing, the seamless blend of the practical and the magical. A prescription for a cough might involve inhaling the fumes of heated herbs and honey. Honey, as we now know, has natural antiseptic properties. But to the SWNW, the healing power is not just in the honey. It is also in the words you chant to the god Horus, asking him to drive out the coughing demon. The physical substance and the magical utterance are inseparable. Historians still argue whether the Egyptian physician saw the incantation as the true healing force, with the herbal remedy acting merely as a physical vehicle for the magic, or if they were two equally important lines of attack against the disease. Did they think the spell enchanted the potion, or was it more like a 1-2 punch, hitting the ailment on both the physical and metaphysical planes at once? The truth is, they probably didn't see a distinction. To them, the universe was woven from both matter and magic, and you couldn't hope to affect one without addressing the other. It's like trying to fix your Wi-Fi by just pleading with the router. It probably won't work on its own, but you can't deny that sometimes it feels like a necessary step. Some of their prescriptions seem wonderfully effective. Willow bark for pain, a natural source of salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Pomegranate for digestive parasites. Other remedies, however, feel a bit more experimental. Need a method of birth control? The Kahan papyrus suggests a paste of crocodile dung and fermented dough to be inserted as a pessary. This is a wonderfully quirky tidbit of their pharmacology. While modern science might suggest its effectiveness had more to do with its, let's say, passion-killing properties than any spermicidal action, some have suggested the acidic dung might have actually worked to some degree. Though one imagines the side effects were considerable. You are given your prescription, a small clay pot containing a paste of ground acacia leaves and honey, and a small roll of papyrus with your spell written upon it. The physician instructs you carefully. You are to apply the poultice while reciting the words, calling on the goddess Sekhmet, the fierce lion-headed deity who could both bring and cure disease, to drive the affliction from your body. As you leave the temple and walk back toward the river, the sun is beginning to set. It casts long shadows, turning the sky a brilliant orange and purple. The world feels imbued with a living spirit, a sense of immense and ancient power. You don't feel like a patient leaving a clinic. You feel like a participant in a sacred ritual. Your healing is not a transaction, but a process of restoring harmony between yourself and the cosmos. It's about cleansing not just your body, but your soul of the hostile forces that cause the imbalance. You hold your little clay pot and your papyrus scroll, tangible links between science and magic, between your own small life and the eternal gods of this incredible land. And as the first stars appear in the darkening sky, you feel a sense of peace settle over you. The healing has already begun. The peace of the Egyptian night gives way to the gentle, rhythmic rocking of a ship. You have left the land of the pharaohs behind, crossing the vast expanse of the Mediterranean, which the Egyptians called the Great Green. The air changes. The dry heat of the desert is replaced by a soft, salty breeze that carries the scent of cypress, thyme, and the sea itself. Your journey takes you to the sun-drenched, rocky shores of the Aegean, to the island of Kos. Here, medicine is taking a different path. You are no longer seeking a magician to exorcise a demon. You are looking for a physician-philosopher who will observe, listen, and reason. You are looking for a follower of Hippocrates. You make your way to an Asclepieion, a sanctuary dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing. But this is not quite like the Egyptian temple. It's an open, airy complex of white stone buildings nestled into a terraced hillside, overlooking the brilliant blue sea. There are temples, yes, but there are also dormitories, gymnasiums, and theaters. It feels less like a place of secret rituals and more like a serene, ancient wellness retreat. The focus here is on rest, clean air, pure water, and a peaceful environment as key components of healing. Remember the Egyptian SWNW and his magical spells? The Greek physician you meet here sets those aside. He believes that every illness has a natural cause. This is the revolutionary idea at the heart of Hippocratic medicine, and it is the great foundational fact of this entire intellectual tradition. Gods might exist, they might be powerful, but they are not personally micromanaging your health with targeted afflictions. Disease is not a divine punishment. It is a product of your environment, your diet, and the delicate equilibrium within your own body. The physician invites you to sit in a quiet courtyard, shaded by an olive tree. He does not begin with incantations. He begins with questions. What have you been eating? Where do you live? What is the weather like? What are your habits? He is a meticulous observer, a detective of the body. He believes the answers to your imbalance lie in the tangible world. He explains to you the theory that governs all his thinking, the doctrine of the four humors. This is the central pillar of Western medicine for the next 2,000 years. He tells you that your body contains four essential fluids, or humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Each humor is linked to one of the four essential elements that make up the world: air, water, fire, and earth. And each has a corresponding quality. Blood is hot and moist, phlegm is cold and moist, yellow bile is hot and dry, and black bile is cold and dry. A healthy person is someone in whom these four humors are in perfect balance. Sickness, therefore, is simply a state of imbalance, an excess or a deficiency of one of these fluids. If you have a fever and a flushed face, you likely have an excess of hot, moist blood. If you are pale, sluggish, and coughing, you probably have a surplus of cold, moist phlegm. It's a beautifully elegant system, a grand unified theory of human biology. It's like having your own internal weather system, and the doctor is your personal meteorologist, trying to predict if you're heading for a heat wave or a cold snap. And the cure? It's logical. If you have too much of one humor, you must reduce it. This is where treatments like bloodletting came in. If you have too much hot blood, letting some out seems like a perfectly reasonable solution. But more often, the goal is to restore balance through opposite forces. If you suffer from a cold and moist ailment like a lingering cough, too much phlegm, the physician will prescribe a diet of hot and dry foods, perhaps spicy herbs, roasted meats, and a little wine. He will advise you to spend time in a warm, dry climate. It is all about coaxing your body back to its natural, harmonious state. You find yourself in the midst of a profound intellectual shift. The Egyptians saw the body as a potential host for outside invaders. The Greeks see the body as a self-contained, self-regulating system. And this new medicine belongs to a whole collection of writings known as the Hippocratic corpus. Scholars continue to debate to what extent the works attributed to Hippocrates were written by him personally, or if they represent a whole school of thought developed by his followers on the island of Kos over many decades. Was he the sole genius or the brilliant figurehead of a medical revolution? The name has come to represent the idea itself, that medicine should be rational, observant, and bound by ethics. Of course, their understanding was far from perfect, and some of their theories, particularly around women's health, are a quirky and fascinating window into their worldview. The physician might explain to you the concept of the wandering womb. Some Greek thinkers believed that a woman's uterus or hystra was an independent creature living inside her body. If it became dry or light, perhaps from a lack of pregnancy, it might become discontented and wander around the body in search of moisture, pressing on other organs and causing all manner of symptoms, from shortness of breath to anxiety. The cure? You had to entice the womb back to its proper place. This was done by applying pleasant smells, like sweet perfumes, to the lower body and foul smells, like burnt wool or pitch, to the nose, effectively herding the runaway organ back home. It sounds absurd to us, but it was a genuine attempt to explain real symptoms within their humoral framework. The physician gives you his diagnosis. He determines that your feelings of lethargy and melancholy are due to an excess of black bile, the cold, dry humor associated with autumn and the earth. This is the root of the word melancholy, which literally means black bile. In a way, it's a much more poetic diagnosis than just being told you're in a bit of a funk. His prescription is not a magical amulet or a crocodile dung pessary, thank goodness. It is a regimen. He advises gentle exercise, more exposure to sunlight, and a diet rich in warm and moist foods like fresh vegetables, good bread, and olive oil. He tells you to avoid cold and dry foods that might exacerbate your condition. He also recommends spending time listening to music and engaging in pleasant conversation. His goal is to gently warm and moisten your internal climate, countering the cold, dry gloom of the black bile. As you leave the Asclepian, the afternoon sun warming your skin, you feel a different kind of hope than you did in Egypt. It's not the hope of divine intervention, but the hope of understanding. You have been given a map to the landscape of your own body. You have been empowered with knowledge, with a sense of agency over your own well-being. The world around you, the warm sun, the salty air, the food you will eat tonight, is no longer just a backdrop. It is your pharmacy. Your healing now is a conscious act of realigning yourself with the natural world, a gentle art of finding your own equilibrium in the warm, clear light of the Aegean. The warm light of the Aegean fades, and your journey continues, moving eastward. You are traveling now not by sea, but overland, following the ancient trade routes that whisper of silk, spices, and philosophies that are profoundly different from those you have encountered so far. The landscape transforms. The scent of olive groves gives way to the fragrant aroma of sandalwood, cardamom, and jasmine. You have arrived in ancient India, a land of vibrant color, deep spirituality, and a medical tradition as old as the Nile itself. Here, you are not a collection of humors to be balanced. You are a universe in miniature, a microcosm of all creation. You are seeking a Vaidya, a practitioner of Ayurveda. The word itself, in Sanskrit, means the science of life, and it is a holistic system that encompasses not just the body, but the mind and spirit as well. You find the Vaidya in a quiet ashram, a place of learning and contemplation set amidst a lush garden. The air is alive with the hum of insects and the distant sound of a temple bell. The Vaidya you meet has a serene presence. Their eyes are gentle, but their gaze is deeply perceptive. Like the Greek physician, they will begin with observation and questions. But their examination is far more intricate. They will listen to your pulse, not just to count its rhythm, but to feel its quality. Does it feel like a snake slithering, a frog jumping, or a swan gliding? Each rhythm tells a story. They will examine your tongue, your eyes, your skin, and even the sound of your voice. They are gathering clues to understand the unique constitution you were born with and how it has fallen out of balance. The Vaidya explains that all of creation, including you, is composed of 5 great elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Within your body, these elements combine to form 3 fundamental life forces, or energies, known as the dashas. This is the core, mainstream principle of Ayurveda. The 3 dashas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata, composed of space and air, is the energy of movement. It governs your breath, your circulation, the blinking of your eyes, and the flow of your thoughts. When in balance, it makes you creative, energetic, and lively. Out of balance, it can lead to anxiety, insomnia, and dry skin. Pitta, made of fire and water, is the energy of digestion and metabolism. It governs your body temperature, your appetite, and your ability to process not just food, but also ideas and emotions. In balance, Pitta makes you intelligent, focused, and a strong leader. Out of balance, it can manifest as anger, inflammation, and indigestion. Kapha, built from earth and water, is the energy of structure and lubrication. It is the very substance of your body, your bones, your muscles, your fat. It provides stability, strength, and calmness. In balance, Kapha makes you loving, steady, and compassionate. Out of balance, it can lead to sluggishness, weight gain, and congestion. Everyone, the Vaidya explains, has a unique combination of these 3 dashas, established at the moment of conception. This is your prakriti, your fundamental nature. Most people have 1 or 2 dominant dashas. Perhaps you are primarily a Pitta-Vata type or a Kapha-Pitta. Your prakriti is your personal blueprint for health. Illness, or vikriti, arises when the balance of your dashas is disturbed by diet, stress, the changing seasons, or emotional turmoil. It's less about a single fluid being in excess, like the Greek humors, and more like a delicate internal ecosystem being disrupted. It's the difference between seeing a single plant in your garden is overgrown versus noticing that the entire garden's soil chemistry has shifted. The goal of the Ayurvedic physician is not just to treat the symptom, but to guide you back to your true nature, your prakriti. After a long and careful examination, the Vaidya determines that your recent feelings of unease and agitation are due to an excess of Vata energy. The airy, mobile quality of Vata has become ungrounded, leading to a scattered mind and a sense of instability. The treatment plan is beautifully comprehensive. It will involve diet, herbs, yoga, meditation, and even specific aromatherapy. To pacify the cool, dry, and mobile qualities of Vata, you are prescribed things that are warm, moist, and grounding. You are advised to eat warm, cooked foods like root vegetables, hearty grains, and nourishing soups. You should avoid cold, raw foods and stimulants like caffeine, which can further aggravate Vata. You are encouraged to establish a regular daily routine, to go to bed early and wake at the same time, to bring a sense of stability and predictability to your days. The Vaidya prepares a special blend of herbs for you. The pharmacology of Ayurveda is incredibly sophisticated. Ancient texts like the Charaka Samhita and the Sushruta Samhita list hundreds of medicinal plants, minerals, and animal products. The Sushruta Samhita is particularly famous for its detailed descriptions of surgical procedures. It describes cataract surgery, the setting of fractures, and most remarkably, early forms of rhinoplasty, reconstructing a nose using a flap of skin from the forehead. This is an incredible surgical achievement for the ancient world. But here's a quirky and wonderful tidbit of Ayurvedic practice. The Vaidya might also prescribe you gemstones. It is believed that certain gems, when worn against the skin, can help to balance the dashas. To calm your excess Vata, you might be given a moonstone or a pearl, believed to have a soothing, watery energy that can ground the flighty nature of air and space. It's a beautiful idea that the earth itself, in its most concentrated and beautiful forms, can be a part of your healing. As part of your therapy, the Vaidya might also recommend a cleansing process known as panchakarma. This is a deeper detoxification that could involve therapeutic massage with warm oils, herbal steam baths, and other purification techniques designed to gently escort the excess doshas out of your body. Historians still argue about the origins and evolution of these complex purification rituals. Were they always a core part of early Ayurveda, or did they develop later as the philosophy became more systematized and integrated with yogic traditions? The answer is likely a slow weaving together of many threads of Indian thought over centuries. You leave the ashram not with a single prescription, but with a new way of living. You have been given a lifestyle tailored specifically to your unique constitution. You feel a profound connection between your inner state and the world around you. The food you eat, the oils on your skin, the rhythm of your day, all are now tools to help you find your balance. You are not just fighting a disease, you are cultivating a garden within yourself. Remember the Greek quest for equilibrium? Here, that idea is expanded to include your mind, your spirit, and your daily habits. It's a deep, compassionate, and life-affirming approach to wellness, a science of life that asks you to become a conscious and loving caretaker of the universe that resides within you. Sappho, the enduring voice of Lesbos. Settle into your quiet space now. Let the demands of your day dissolve like sea foam on a distant shore. We are not traveling to a battlefield or a throne room tonight. We are drifting back, through more than 2.5 millennia, to a place of sunlight, olive groves, and the sound of a lyre. We are going to an island in the Aegean, and as you close your eyes, you can begin to feel the morning sun on your skin. You are awakening on Lesbos. The first thing you notice is the quality of the light. It's not a harsh, demanding glare. It's a soft, golden light that spills through the open portico of your bedroom, painting a warm rectangle on the cool, tiled floor. A gentle breeze, carrying the scent of salt from the sea and the dry, herbal fragrance of thyme from the hills, stirs the linen curtain. Outside, you can hear the rhythmic, hypnotic hum of cicadas just beginning their daily chorus, a sound that is the very essence of a Greek summer. This is your world. You are Sappho, a daughter of an aristocratic family in the city of Mytilene. Your life is one of privilege, insulated from the hard toil you see in the fields and at the docks. Your home is spacious, built around a central courtyard where a fountain might splash into a small basin. The walls are of stone and plaster, whitewashed to a brilliant white that reflects the powerful Aegean sun. This is the late 7th century before the Common Era. Scholars still debate the precise years you walked this earth, but your time is one of ferment and change, of new ideas taking root in the fertile soil of the Greek world. You rise and dress in a simple, elegant chiton, a tunic of fine linen, letting it drape in soft folds. Your world is one of texture and beauty. You run a hand over a polished wooden chest, trace the painted patterns on a clay amphora. Life is not about accumulating vast hoards of treasure. It is about the appreciation of well-crafted, beautiful things. And the most beautiful thing in your life, the thing that gives it shape and meaning, is poetry. Not the grand, thundering epics of Homer, with their clashing armies and scheming gods. That is the poetry of great public events, of men and their wars. Yours is something different, something smaller, more intimate, and in its own way more powerful. It is lyric poetry. You pick up your lyre. Its body is made from a polished tortoise shell, its arms from curved wood, and its 7 strings are taut gut. It feels light and familiar in your hands. When you pluck a string, the note is clear and resonant, not a trumpet blast, but a sound that seems to vibrate in the space between heartbeats. This is poetry meant to be sung, to be performed for a small circle of listeners, a personal expression of a single, fleeting moment of emotion. In a way, you are the world's first singer-songwriter, turning your inner life into music. Your days are structured around the rhythms of an aristocratic household. You oversee the weaving, a vital and highly respected female art. But your real work happens in the quieter moments. It is the work of finding words for the feelings that ripple through you. You watch the way the evening light, which you call dusk, the bringer of all things, reunites the sheep with its shepherd, the child with its mother. You see the grace in the movement of a young woman, and you search for the perfect combination of syllables to capture it. Your family is a well-known one, and not without its share of drama. This is a mainstream historical fact that grounds you in this world. Lesbos is a hotbed of political intrigue, with rival aristocratic clans vying for power against upstart tyrants. Men like Pittacus, later to be known as one of the 7 sages of Greece, are changing the old order. It's a complicated political landscape, a bit like trying to follow all the drama in a high-stakes homeowners association, and it will touch your life directly. For now, though, the drama is more personal. You have 3 brothers, and the oldest, Caraxus, is a source of some concern. He is a merchant who trades with the exotic land of Egypt. And there, in the port city of Naucratis, he has fallen hopelessly in love with and spent the family fortune on a famous and beautiful courtesan named Doricha. You will later write a poem about this, scolding him and praying to the goddess Hera for his safe, and hopefully more sensible, return. It's the stuff of ancient reality television, a quirky, personal tidbit that reminds us that family squabbles are timeless. Your other brother, Laricus, is more respectable, serving as a wine pourer in the town hall, a prestigious honor for a young aristocrat. But it is the lives of women, their hopes, their friendships, their loves, that truly capture your attention. In your world, the lives of men and women are largely separate. Men have their symposiums, their political clubs, their gymnasiums. Women have their own rich, interior world, centered on the household, religious festivals, and the preparation for marriage. And it is in this world that you are finding your voice. You are beginning to compose songs for weddings, beautiful hymns called epithalamia, celebrating the bride as she moves from her childhood home to that of her husband. You write about the bridegroom, comparing him to a sweet apple at the highest bough, left unpicked by the harvesters. You write about the nervous excitement, the bittersweet farewells. But you're also beginning to write something else, something more personal. Poems about the breathtaking beauty of other women, about the intense bonds of friendship and love that form within this female world. You describe the way a particular girl's laughter sounds, the scent of flower garlands in another's hair, the feeling of pure awe that washes over you when you gaze upon someone you find beautiful. You do this with a clarity and directness that is startling. You speak in the first person. I, you say again and again. It is a voice that is unapologetically individual, claiming its own experience as worthy of art. In a world where poetry so often told the stories of heroes and gods, you are telling the story of your own heart. As the day ends, you might sit in your courtyard, the lyre resting in your lap. The sky is turning a deep violet, and the first stars are beginning to appear. You are not yet the 10th muse, the title Plato will one day give you. You are not yet a legend, a symbol, or a controversy. You are a woman on an island, surrounded by beauty, trying to create a net of words strong enough to catch a feeling before it flies away. And in the quiet of the evening, you pluck a single, clear note and begin to sing. The world of your home, with its quiet courtyards and familial duties, begins to expand. The songs you compose are no longer just for yourself or for a family wedding. Your reputation as a poet and a teacher is growing, drawing others to you. You are becoming the center of a circle, a thiosos, a community of young women who have come to Mytilene to be in your orbit. They are not students in the modern sense. You are not running a formal academy with a set curriculum and graduation certificates. This is something more fluid, more personal. These are the unmarried daughters of other aristocratic families, from Lesbos and even from other islands and cities across the Greek world. They have come to you to be mentored, to learn the arts that will prepare them for their lives as noble women. They have come to learn what you have mastered, how to create and appreciate beauty. Your days now are filled with the sounds of their voices and laughter. You gather in sunlit groves or in the shaded porticos of your home. Here, you teach them. You show them the intricate steps of choral dances, the proper way to hold themselves, to walk with grace. You teach them how to compose poetry, how to set their words to the music of the lyre. You instruct them in what the Greeks called musique, the arts of the muses, which encompassed not just music and poetry, but dance, elegance, and all the elements of a cultured life. It's a bit like a very exclusive, ancient finishing school, but with less emphasis on balancing books on your head, and more on composing soul-wrenching poetry about the girl you have a crush on. The bonds formed in this circle are intense, intimate, and deeply emotional. This is the central, mainstream fact of your life's work, the relationships you foster and immortalize in your poetry. You are their teacher, their mentor, and in many ways, their role model. But the relationships are not just hierarchical. Within the circle, passionate friendships blossom between the girls themselves and between you and your pupils. It is a world of women for women, filled with shared secrets, rivalries, and powerful attachments. You give them pet names. There is Anactoria, the ruler. Athos, whose name echoes that of the region around Athens. Gongola, meaning the round one. You adorn them, and they adorn themselves with flowers. Violets, crocuses, roses. You teach them to weave garlands for their hair, to anoint themselves with fragrant oils and perfumes from Lydia, the wealthy kingdom to the east. Your poems are filled with these sensory details: the scent of myrrh, the softness of a woolen tunic, the shimmer of a purple handkerchief. You are creating a space that is a haven of cultivated beauty, a vibrant, fragrant world set apart from the dust and politics of the city. One of your most famous poems, the one known to us as Fragment 94, captures the bittersweet pain of parting from one of these beloved girls. The poem begins with the girl weeping, saying she must leave you against her will. And you, Sappho, offer comfort by reminding her of the beautiful life you shared. You say, "Remember all the things we did." You list the memories, the many wreaths of violets and roses you placed around her head, the garlands of flowers you wove for her soft neck, the precious perfumes you anointed her with. You speak of lying on soft cushions, satisfying your desire. It is a poem of incredible intimacy, a snapshot of a tearful farewell that feels as real and as painful today as it did 2,600 years ago. Historians and classicists still argue passionately about the precise nature of this circle. Was it a formal religious association dedicated to Aphrodite? Was it primarily an educational institution to prepare girls for marriage? Or was it, as seems so evident in the poetry, a space where homoerotic relationships were an accepted and celebrated part of life? The truth is likely a complex blend of all three. In the ancient world, these categories were not as rigidly defined as they are for us. Education, religious devotion, and love were not mutually exclusive. They were deeply intertwined aspects of a single, rich experience. Of course, not everyone is a fan. You have rivals, other women who lead similar circles, like Andromeda and Gorgo. In your poems, you sometimes refer to them with a bit of competitive shade. You dismiss one rival's student as a country bumpkin, who doesn't even know how to properly drape her dress. It's a wonderfully petty and humanizing detail, a quirky reminder that even the 10th muse could get a little catty when her artistic supremacy was challenged. It's the ancient Greek equivalent of a diss track, performed on a tortoiseshell lyre. The girls in your circle are not destined to stay with you forever. They are all on a journey toward marriage. The education you provide, the grace and culture they learn, enhances their value as brides for the sons of other aristocratic families. A wedding is the culmination of their time with you, and when one of your beloveds leaves to be married, it is a moment of both celebration and profound loss. You compose poems for these occasions that are filled with a complex mix of emotions. You praise the bride's beauty, you tease the groom, you celebrate the union. But underneath, there is often a current of personal sorrow, the pain of losing a cherished companion. You describe watching the bride, radiant and surrounded by her new family, and feeling a pang of something akin to jealousy. You write about the groom, and how he seems to you equal to the gods simply because he gets to sit next to her and listen to her sweetly laughing. This is the emotional core of your world. It is a cycle of arrival, intimacy, and departure. You create a vibrant, loving community, only to see it constantly change as its members move on to the next stage of their lives. And you, the constant at the center, are left to capture the fleeting beauty of these relationships in your songs. You are building a legacy not in stone or bronze, but in words. A legacy that immortalizes the names, the laughter, and the love of the circle of girls who lived, for a time, in the golden light of your island. The circle of girls provides you with your audience and your inspiration, but the words themselves come from a place deep within you. You are honing a new kind of art, one that turns the lens of poetry inward with a startling and sometimes uncomfortable focus. You craft words that do not just describe a feeling, but that physically manifest it for the listener. Your words burn. You are sitting in the courtyard, perhaps, watching one of your beloveds, maybe Anactoria, laugh as she speaks with a young man, a potential suitor. He is handsome, charming, a good match from a fine family. And as you watch them, something happens to you. The world seems to narrow, the sound of the fountain fades, and you are consumed by a wave of feeling so powerful it is a physical event. Later, alone with your lyre, you will try to capture it. This is the moment you compose the poem that will become your most famous. A piece of verse so powerful that Longinus, a literary critic centuries later, will praise it as a sublime masterpiece. It is the poem that begins, "He seems to me equal to the gods." You describe the man who sits opposite the girl, listening to her sweet laughter. And then you turn the camera, so to speak, directly onto yourself. You describe what this sight does to you. For when I look at you, you sing. Even for a moment, my voice will no longer come. Your tongue breaks. A thin fire runs under your skin. Your eyes see nothing, and your ears are filled with a roaring sound. Cold sweat pours down you, and a trembling seizes your entire body. You become, you say, paler than grass, and feel as though you are on the verge of death. This is not a polite, abstract declaration of love or jealousy. This is a clinical, almost terrifyingly precise account of a physiological reaction. It's the ancient Greek description of a full-blown panic attack brought on by lovesickness. Anyone who has ever felt their heart hammer in their chest at the sight of a crush, or felt their stomach drop when that person smiled at someone else, knows exactly what you are talking about. You have given a name and a form to the raw, physical chaos of desire. You have put the hurricane into a bottle. This poem, and others like it, cement your fame. Your songs travel. Merchants like your brother Caraxes, sailors, and aristocrats carry your reputation from island to island. You become known throughout the Greek-speaking world as the poet, a voice unlike any other. But fame on an island as politically volatile as Lesbos can be a dangerous thing. Remember the political struggles, the rivalries between clans? They have not gone away. They have intensified. The ruling aristocrats, your class, are being challenged. A man named Pittacus, a popular general, rises to power. And your family, it seems, is on the wrong side of this political shift. This is the mainstream historical fact that will change the course of your life. At the height of your fame, you are forced into exile. The order comes down. You must leave Lesbos. Historians still debate the precise reasons. Was it solely because of your husband or brother's political leanings? Was your family part of a failed plot against the new tyrant? Or did your own influence, your circle of devoted followers, and your powerful, emotionally charged poetry make you seem like a threat to the new regime? Perhaps a woman with such a powerful voice, one who could sway hearts and minds with just a lyre and a song, was a destabilizing force in herself. The departure is not a dramatic flight in the night. It is a quiet, heartbreaking inevitability. You pack a few things into a wooden chest. You say your farewells to the girls of your circle, a scene of tears and promises that you have already immortalized in your poetry, never imagining you would be the one to leave so definitively. You walk down to the harbor of Mytilene, the same harbor where your brother's ships would arrive with their exotic cargo. You board a boat, and as the sailors hoist the single square sail, you watch the whitewashed buildings of your city, the familiar green hills of your island, shrink into the distance. You are headed for Sicily, a Greek colony but a world away. The journey is long. The rhythm of the waves, the vast emptiness of the sea, the unfamiliar stars at night, it all serves to heighten your sense of dislocation. When you arrive, the light is different, the air smells wrong, the voices of the people have a strange accent. You are a stranger here, a famous one perhaps, but unrooted. The pain of this exile will echo in your later poems. You write about dreaming of your home, of your longing for the familiar faces and the soft meadows of Lesbos. Years pass. The political winds on Lesbos shift once more, and you are eventually allowed to return. You are older now. You have seen more of the world than you ever intended. You return to your home, to the familiar scent of thyme and sea salt, but something has changed. It is during this later period of your life that a strange and enduringly quirky story begins to attach itself to your name. It's a fiction, a fabrication by later writers, mostly Athenian comic playwrights who seem baffled by you. They invent a story that you, the great Sappho, fell madly in love with a handsome but disinterested ferryman named Phaon. And in your despair over this unrequited love for a man, you traveled to a place called the Leucadian Rock and threw yourself into the sea. It's a dramatic, tragic, and entirely heterosexual love story, and it is almost certainly complete nonsense. It's a classic case of men trying to retroactively explain your passionate poetry by inventing a man as the cause. Apparently, the idea that you could feel such earth-shattering emotions for other women was so outside their comprehension that they had to create a fictional boatman to make it all make sense. But you, the real Sappho, know the truth. You know the faces and the names of the women who inspired your greatest work. You have outlasted your exile, you have outlasted your rivals, and you have created a new kind of poetry that gives voice to the most intimate corners of the human heart. You have put words to the fire, the trembling, the feeling of being more alive and closer to death than you have ever been before. And those words will outlast everything. The years pass as they always do, gently and then all at once. The sun still warms the stones of Mytilene, but your lyre has fallen silent. You fade from a living person into a revered ancestor, then a legend, and finally just a name. Your physical voice is gone, but your written words, your poems, embark on their own long and perilous journey through time. After your death, your work is collected and celebrated. In the great libraries of the Hellenistic world, like the famous one in Alexandria, scholars meticulously edit your poetry. This is a mainstream historical fact. Your work was compiled into 9 books or scrolls, organized by the poetic meter in which they were written. You were part of the canon, one of the 9 essential lyric poets, studied and admired by generations of Greek and Roman readers. For centuries, your voice remained strong, your poems copied and recopied by scribes who valued your art. You were as famous in the ancient world as any poet has ever been. But the world changes. Empires rise and fall. The Roman Empire, which had embraced Greek culture, eventually crumbles. The great library at Alexandria, a beacon of ancient knowledge, suffers a series of fires and disasters, its vast collection of scrolls lost to flame and neglect. Papyrus, the material on which your words were written, is fragile. It decays in the damp climate of Europe. The old gods, including your beloved Aphrodite, are replaced by a new one, and the worldview that celebrated your passionate, personal poetry is supplanted by one that is often suspicious of it. Your 9 books vanish. Not all at once, in a single dramatic fire, but through a slow, quiet process of attrition. Scrolls crumble. Scribes choose not to copy works that are no longer in fashion, or that seem morally questionable to the new Christian authorities. Your voice, once so clear and resonant, fades to a whisper, then to silence. For almost 1,000 years, you are almost completely lost. All that remains of your vast body of work are a few quotations embedded in the writings of other ancient authors, like Longinus, who preserved, he seems to me equal to the gods, in his treatise on literary style. You exist only as an echo in someone else's book. And then a little over a century ago, a miracle happens. In a most unexpected place. Not on the shores of Lesbos, but in the dry, preserving sands of Egypt. Remember your brother, Caraxes, and his business in Naucratis? The connection to Egypt proves fateful in the end. Archaeologists excavating the ancient town of Oxyrhynchus, a site that served as a municipal rubbish dump for centuries, begin to uncover a treasure trove. They find mountains of discarded papyrus, old letters, tax records, shopping lists, and incredibly fragments of lost ancient literature. This is the quirky, almost unbelievable part of your story's survival. Your poetry wasn't preserved in a grand library or a royal tomb. It was saved because it was thrown out with the trash. The perfectly dry climate of Egypt mummified these scraps of papyrus, preserving them for 2 millennia. Among these fragments, scholars began to identify lines and stanzas written in your distinctive Aeolic Greek dialect. It was like finding pieces of a lost Rembrandt being used as wrapping paper. Suddenly, you began to speak again. Not in full, complete poems, but in tantalizing snippets. A line here, a stanza there. A poem about your daughter, Clays, for whom you say you would not trade all the wealth of Lydia. A fragment that simply says, "Someone, I tell you, will remember us in the future." Another that pleads, "Come back to me, Gongola." These fragments are like glimpses through a keyhole into your lost world. They are full of holes, words eaten away by time, forcing us to imagine what is missing. Scholars pore over these scraps, trying to piece them together. The work is painstaking, a kind of linguistic archaeology, and the debate over how to interpret these fragments is endless. When a line trails off, what came next? Does a particular word carry the weight we think it does, or did it have a different nuance then? Classicists still argue over the interpretation of nearly every recovered scrap of your poetry, each fragment a little universe of scholarly contention. And the discoveries continue. In just the last 2 decades, new fragments have emerged from the papyrus wrappings of Egyptian mummies and from private collections. One of these, published in 2014, gave us a nearly complete new poem, The Brother's Poem, in which you speak of your hopes for the safe return of your seafaring brother Caraxes. It was a stunning confirmation of the family drama that ancient sources had described, your own voice finally weighing in on the matter of your brother and his ill-advised love affair. It was like hearing from a long-lost friend after 2,000 years of silence. Today, all we have of your 9 books are a handful of complete or nearly complete poems and hundreds of these heart-wrenching fragments. And yet, from these scraps, your voice emerges with astonishing clarity. You are no longer just a name from a comic play, the fictional lover of a ferryman. You are once again the poet of the intimate moment, the chronicler of the circle of girls, the woman who knew how desire could feel like a fire under the skin. You have become a symbol for so many. For poets, you are an ancestor, a testament to the enduring power of a personal voice. For women, you are a rare and precious female artist from a time when most were silenced. For the LGBTQ+ community, your name and the name of your island home have become powerful symbols of love and identity. You would likely be baffled by all of this, by the weight your memory has been asked to carry. But as our story comes to a close, let's let all of that fall away. Let's go back to the beginning, back to the island, to the light, to the lyre. You are not a symbol, not a fragment, not a controversy. You are a woman, composing a song in a quiet courtyard, trying to find the words. And the simple, astonishing fact is that you found them. Words so true, so powerful, and so beautiful that they managed to survive the fall of empires, the burning of libraries, and 2,000 years of silence, carried on the most fragile of wings, to find us here tonight.